Hi everyone, and welcome to my first polymer clay video. Although I love traditional 2D artwork, I'm also a huge fan of sculpted work thanks to my fascination with art history. I even make and sell polymer clay jewelry from time to time. In this video, I'll be showing you how I made painted polymer clay pins for the very first time. Because it's such a tedious process, I shaped my charms off camera based off of a few designs I sketched in my Procreate app. To smooth out imperfections such as fingerprints and surface level dust, you can use rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip. If you don't have rubbing alcohol on hand, you can also try using sandpaper and water to smooth your charms and remove debris. Here you can see a little bit of the rough texture from the sculpting process that I'm trying to smooth out. Just that little bit of sanding helped immensely. I've found that rubbing alcohol works, but really only with surface level dust. Okay, now that all the charms have been sanded and rinsed off, it is time to paint. For painting, I break out my Turner Acryl Gouache. I only have a super basic set, so I'm limited by the colors that I have, and I did have a bit of trouble mixing. For the cat-shaped charms, I decided to paint my goofy, soon-to-be 8-year-old cat Premo, and I did have a little bit of an issue working out his face. I had to mix up a dark brown for the base color, and that was a little tricky, and it did get a bit messy. I knew I wanted to paint Premo, but I dove right in, not really knowing what direction I wanted to go in when it came to painting a cartoonish Premo. The cute little drawing there just didn't fit the personality of my fat cat, so I wanted to try something else. And I ended up hating it. Yep, it was just not the look I was going for. You can see here that I did scrap that first one. I ended up painting over it. Okay, now that all charms are mostly painted, I'm just adding in a few minor details. Here you can see that I figured out the best method for painting the beams. For the black detail work, I use a Sakura Pigma Graphic 1. They're the same brand as the coveted micron pens. It's just a bigger, like, brush tip, I guess. Alright, it's time to glaze. Before starting, I pour a bit of rubbing alcohol in a little cup to clean my brush as needed. I also use a small piece of wax paper to protect the surface of my desk from the resin. This particular type of resin that I'm using is the Koo UV Resin. So I poured just a drop over the face of the charm because a little goes a long way. You don't want too much or you'll miss getting a smooth surface. You can always go back later to add another layer of resin if you want to achieve a doming effect. I have a cheap UV nail lamp that I set my charm under so that it can cure. The packaging directions recommend 2 to 4 minutes. However, I find that it doesn't really work out that well. My charm ends up being a bit tacky still. I put it back under the lamp for a couple more minutes and it's still tacky. So I decided to try putting them out in the sun, and look at there, it works. The resin packaging recommends 30 to 90 seconds in sunlight, but after waiting 60 seconds, there was still a light tackiness to the charms, so to be safe, I gave it about 15 minutes and the charms ended up curing so well. So if you use this resin, bright sunlight is the way to go. I do want to try using a stronger lamp in the future, but for now, I'll just utilize nature. So I generally end up making a few mistakes when doing stuff like this, and I have to backtrack. I don't work in a particularly linear way, but making these goofs is pretty much how I'm forever learning as an artist. Case in point, before resin coating the spot you see here, I glue on the pen backs. After giving the pen backs time to bond to the charms, I start to coat the charm backs with resin. I don't think about where the heck I'm gonna pen these things in order to coat the faces that I didn't yet coat in resin. Corkboard is the answer, but that could have been avoided had I not been rushing, but I was too excited. That white eraser is there because I was gonna use it to hold the pins as I painted the faces with the resin, but there were just too many charms, so I didn't end up using it. So I just go through and coat all of the charms with the UV resin until I am satisfied, and then I sit them out in the sun to cure. All done. They're so smooth and shiny, and I'm so stoked with how they turned out. I separated these into 2 piles. Pile A is complete, but pile B still has a few areas that I missed with the resin, so I need to go back over those later. While it was a long and somewhat tedious process to make these pens, I'm super happy that I did. I have loads of great ideas now. Thank you guys for watching. I'll list all supplies used in the description box below. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.